I'm standing in an empty house right now, listening to my own voice echo off bare walls. My name is James. I'm 45 years old, and 3 hours ago, I handed over the keys to the home where my wife Sarah and I built what I thought was our perfect life. Sarah is 38, and for 12 years, she was everything to me. Everything, until I found out she'd been sleeping with our neighbor Marcus for 8 months. You want to know what betrayal sounds like? It sounds like your wife's laugh coming through thin walls at 2 in the morning when she thinks you're asleep. It sounds like her phone buzzing with messages she deletes before you can see them. It sounds like her saying, "I love you too," to someone who isn't you while she's standing in your kitchen, wearing the robe you bought her for Christmas. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how this all started, because the thing about affairs is they don't just happen overnight. They're built on a foundation of small lies, and I was too stupid to see the construction happening right under my nose. Sarah and I bought our house on Maple Street in 2018. It was everything we'd dreamed of, a 2-story colonial with a wraparound porch, mature oak trees, and neighbors who actually waved when they saw you. Marcus Chin moved in next door about 2 years later with his wife Linda and their twin boys. He was one of those guys who seemed to have it all figured out. Successful architect, drove a Tesla, always had the perfect lawn. Sarah mentioned him more than I thought was normal, but I chalked it up to neighborly friendliness. Marcus offered to help with the garden renovation, she'd say over dinner, or Marcus thinks we should get solar panels too. Always Marcus this, Marcus that. When did my wife start caring so much about our neighbors' opinions? The first real red flag came last spring. I was working late again. I run a small construction business, and spring is our busy season. Sarah had started going to bed earlier, claiming headaches, claiming stress from her job at the marketing firm. But one night, I came home around midnight and saw her car wasn't in the driveway. When I called her cell, it went straight to voicemail. She came home 20 minutes later with a bag from CVS. "Where were you?" I asked. "Had to get medicine for my headache." The one on 5th Street is the only one open late. I didn't think much of it then. Why would I? This was Sarah, my wife, the woman who still left little notes in my lunchbox after 12 years of marriage. But something felt off. The CVS bag only had gum in it. Who drives to a pharmacy at midnight for gum? Things started changing after that. Sarah, who used to greet me with a kiss when I got home from work, barely looked up from her phone. She started working out more, buying new clothes, taking longer showers. When I tried to initiate intimacy, she always had an excuse. Too tired, too stressed, too busy with work projects. "We should go on a date," I suggested one Saturday morning. "Remember that Italian place we used to love?" "I can't tonight. I promised Linda I'd help her with something." Linda, Marcus's wife. It struck me as odd because Sarah had never been particularly close with Linda before. But again, I pushed the thought away. I trusted my wife. That was my mistake. The signs became impossible to ignore by summer. Sarah would disappear for hours, claiming she was at the gym or shopping with friends, but she never had workout clothes to wash or shopping bags to show for it. Her phone was always face down now, always on silent. She'd changed her passcode, something she'd never done in our entire marriage. One evening in July, I decided to surprise her. She'd said she was working late, so I stopped by her office with takeout from her favorite Thai place. The security guard told me everyone had left hours ago. I sat in my truck in that empty parking lot for 20 minutes, trying to make sense of it. Where was my wife? Who was she with? The rational part of my brain offered innocent explanations. Maybe she'd gone to a coworker's house. Maybe there was a work event she'd forgotten to mention. But my gut knew better. I drove home slowly, taking the long way, dreading what I might find. But Sarah's car was in the driveway when I pulled up, and she was in the kitchen making tea like nothing had happened. "How was work?" I asked. "Exhausting. We had this huge presentation to finish." "Which presentation?" She paused for just a second too long. "The Morrison account. You know, the one I've been telling you about." I didn't know. She hadn't mentioned any Morrison account, but I nodded and pretended to believe her because the alternative, accepting that my wife was lying to my face, was too devastating to process. That night, after Sarah fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling and listening to Marcus's dog barking next door. The sound seemed to go on forever, and I found myself wondering if Marcus was awake too, wondering what kept him up at night. The breakdown of trust happened gradually, then all at once. It was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. First a crack in the foundation, then a crumbling wall, then the whole structure coming down around you. August brought the worst heat wave our city had seen in years. The air conditioning in my truck broke, and I was miserable working job sites in 90-degree weather. I decided to come home early one Tuesday afternoon to cool off and grab a cold shower. I pulled into our driveway and immediately noticed Marcus's Tesla parked on the street instead of his usual spot in his own driveway. Odd, but not necessarily suspicious. Maybe his garage door was broken. I walked into our house through the front door, calling out, "Sarah, you home?" No answer. Her car was in the garage, so I knew she was there somewhere. Maybe she was taking a nap. That's when I heard it. Voices coming from upstairs. Sarah's voice, and a man's voice that definitely wasn't mine. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I stood at the bottom of our staircase, the same staircase where Sarah and I had hung our wedding photos, and listened to my wife having a conversation with another man in our bedroom. I couldn't make out the words, but I could hear the tone. Intimate, familiar, the way she used to talk to me. I crept up the stairs, each step feeling like it might be my last. Our bedroom door was closed, but I could see shadows moving underneath. I pressed my ear to the door. "We have to be more careful," Sarah was saying. "James almost caught us last week." "Maybe it's time to tell him," the man replied. It was Marcus. Of course it was Marcus. I can't. Not yet. I need more time to figure this out. "Sarah, this is killing me. Sneaking around, lying to Linda, lying to James. I want to be with you." "I know, I want that too, but it's complicated." Complicated? My 12-year marriage was complicated. I stood there for I don't know how long listening to my wife plan a future that didn't include me with our neighbor. They talked about weekend getaways they wanted to take, restaurants they wanted to try, how much better their life would be once they were free from their situations. That's what I was to Sarah now, a situation. I backed away from the door slowly, afraid they might hear the floorboards creak. I made it downstairs and out to my truck without making a sound. I sat there in my own driveway, hands shaking, trying to process what I'd just heard. How long had this been going on? How many times had they been together in our bed while I was at work? How many times had Marcus looked me in the eye and shaken my hand at neighborhood barbecues while he was sleeping with my wife? I drove around for hours that day, not wanting to go home, not wanting to face Sarah. When I finally walked through our front door around dinner time, she was in the kitchen making spaghetti like it was any other Tuesday. "Hey, honey," she said, not even looking up from the stove. "How was work?" "Fine," I managed. "How was your day?" "Oh, you know, same old boring stuff. I did some cleaning, ran a few errands." Errands? Is that what we're calling it now? I couldn't eat dinner that night. Every time I looked at Sarah, I saw her with Marcus, Every time she smiled at me, I wondered if she was thinking about him. When she reached across the table to touch my hand, I had to fight the urge to pull away. "Are you feeling okay?" she asked. "You seem distant." Distant? The woman who was cheating on me with our neighbor thought I seemed distant. "Just tired," I said. That night I pretended to be asleep while Sarah took a shower. I could hear her humming, actually humming, while she washed herself. When had she stopped humming around me? When had she started saving her happiness for someone else? The next few weeks were torture. I found myself analyzing every interaction, every smile, every time she left the house. I started coming home at random times, hoping to catch them together, dreading catching them together. I hired a private investigator, a guy named Tom, who'd done some work for my lawyer friend Dan. Tom was expensive, but he was thorough. "I need evidence," I told him. "Photos, documents, whatever you can get." Tom delivered more than I'd bargained for. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, photos of them together at places Sarah had told me she couldn't go because she was too busy with work. There was even a credit card statement showing purchases at Victoria's Secret on days when she'd claimed to be visiting her sick mother. The most damning evidence was a text message thread Tom had managed to retrieve from Sarah's deleted messages, months of explicit conversations, declarations of love, plans for their future together. In one message, Marcus had written, "I can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. James deserves better than being lied to, and Linda deserves the truth too. Even the man who was sleeping with my wife thought I deserved better than what my wife was giving me." The breaking point came on a Saturday in September. Sarah had told me she was going shopping with her sister Janet, but Janet called our house looking for her. "I thought Sarah was with you," Janet said when I answered the phone. "She's supposed to be shopping with you." "No, we canceled those plans yesterday. I haven't talked to her since Thursday." I hung up the phone and felt something inside me snap. Enough. I was done pretending, done making excuses, done being the fool who trusted his lying wife. I drove to the hotel where Tom had photographed them the week before. Sure enough, Marcus's Tesla was in the parking lot. I sat there for 3 hours, waiting. When they finally came out, Sarah saw me immediately. The look on her face, pure terror mixed with guilt, told me everything I needed to know. She ran to my truck. "James, I can explain." "Explain what? Explain how you've been lying to me for months? Explain how you've been screwing our neighbor in hotel rooms while I've been working to pay for the house where you pretend to love me?" Marcus approached slowly, his hands up like he was surrendering. "James, man, I'm sorry. This isn't how we wanted you to find out. Don't you dare talk to me about we. There is no we. There's my wife, who promised to be faithful to me, and there's you, the piece of garbage who helped her break that promise." Sarah was crying now. "James, please, let me explain. It just happened. We didn't plan for this." "It just happened? For 8 months? 8 months just happened?" The number seemed to surprise her. She didn't know I knew exactly how long this had been going on. "You hired someone to follow me?" she asked. "I hired someone to find the truth, since you weren't going to give it to me." That night, Sarah moved into our guest bedroom. She tried to talk to me several times over the next few days, but I couldn't bear to hear her voice. Every word that came out of her mouth felt like another betrayal. "How do you believe someone who's been lying to you for months?" Linda found out about the affair 3 days later, when Marcus finally grew a conscience and confessed. She called me, sobbing, asking if I'd known, asking how long it had been going on, asking how we'd both been so blind. "I keep thinking about all the times they offered to watch the boys," Linda said through her tears. "All the times Sarah would come over for coffee while you were at work. Were they planning this? Were they laughing at us?" I didn't have answers for her. I didn't have answers for anyone, including myself. The divorce proceedings started in October. Sarah wanted to keep the house, claiming she'd contributed just as much to the mortgage as I had. She wanted alimony, claiming she'd need time to adjust to single life. She wanted half of everything we'd built together while she'd been tearing it down behind my back. That's when I realized something. The house, our beautiful house on Maple Street with the wraparound porch and mature oak trees, wasn't just our home. It was the scene of her betrayal. It was where she'd brought Marcus while I was at work. It was where she'd planned her future without me. It was where she'd made a fool of me for 8 months. I couldn't live there anymore. But I'd be damned if I was going to let her have it. I called my realtor on a Thursday morning. I want to list the house this week. This week? James, that's pretty fast. Don't you want to think about it? I've thought about it. I want it sold. Sarah came home from her lawyer's office that afternoon to find a for sale sign in our front yard. What the hell is this? She screamed at me. You can't sell our house without my permission. Actually, I can. I talked to my lawyer. Since we're both on the deed and neither of us has filed for exclusive occupancy, either party can initiate a sale. This is insane. This is our home. No, Sarah, this was our home. Now it's the place where you cheated on me with Marcus. Every room in this house has been contaminated by your lies. I'm not living here anymore, and I'm sure as hell not letting you live here either. The house sold in 2 weeks. The market was hot, and we got an offer $20,000 over asking price. Sarah fought it right up until the closing, but legally, there was nothing she could do to stop it. Moving day was surreal, watching strangers carry out our furniture, pack up our wedding photos, dismantle the life we'd built together piece by piece. Sarah cried through most of it. I felt nothing. Marcus and Linda's house went up for sale the same week ours closed. Apparently, Linda wasn't interested in staying in the neighborhood where her husband had carried on his affair either. I heard through mutual friends that their divorce was even messier than mine and Sarah's. I bought a condo across town, something small and modern with no memories attached to it. Sarah moved into an apartment near her office. The house on Maple Street, where we'd planned to raise children and grow old together, now belongs to a young couple with twin toddlers. I hope they're happier there than we were. The divorce was finalized in February. Sarah got her alimony for 2 years, but she didn't get the house. She didn't get to keep living in the place where she'd betrayed me. That felt like a small victory in a war where I'd lost everything that mattered. People ask me if I'm bitter, if I regret selling the house, giving up the life I'd worked so hard to build. The truth is, that life was built on a lie. Sarah had already destroyed it. I just made the destruction visible. I saw Marcus at the grocery store last month. He looked older, sadder, like the weight of what he'd done was finally catching up with him. He saw me too, but we didn't speak. What would be the point? Some betrayals are too deep for apologies. Sarah texted me on what would have been our 13th wedding anniversary. I'm sorry for everything, the message said. I never meant to hurt you. I deleted it without responding. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. Sorry doesn't undo 8 months of lies. Sorry doesn't give me back the years I wasted loving someone who was planning her exit strategy. I'm 45 years old, and I'm starting over. Some days that feels terrifying. Other days it feels like freedom. I don't have to wonder where my wife is anymore. I don't have to analyze every conversation for hidden meanings. I don't have to live in a house full of ghosts. The hardest part isn't the loneliness or the financial strain or even the embarrassment of having everyone in our social circle know what happened. The hardest part is learning to trust my own judgment again. How do you move forward when the person you trusted most in the world spent months lying to your face? How do you believe in love when the woman who promised to love you forever was planning her forever with someone else? I don't have those answers yet. Maybe I never will. But I know this. I'd rather live alone with the truth than live with someone who made me a stranger in my own life. The house on Maple Street is gone, and so is the marriage I thought I had. But I'm still here, broken, but still here. And some days, that feels like enough.